Welcome to Mildberry's Fort. Today's podcast will be about earthquakes, more specifically about the comparison between Japan and Haiti earthquakes. We will ask, why was there so much more destruction and loss of life caused by the Haiti earthquake than the Japanese ones? Joining us today are Nami Tsu and Q Baptiste. Dr. Nami Tsu is a leading Japanese authority of weather catastrophes, particularly those wreaking havoc on his home country. After earning his doctorate in geophysics from the prestigious University of Tokyo, he dedicated his career to the prediction and mitigation of tsunamis and earthquakes. Dr. Chi's research has been instrumental in saving countless lives and minimizing damage from these natural disasters. Good afternoon, Dr. Tsunami.
Good afternoon, konnichiwa.
Dr. Q Baptiste is from the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince. He studied at Naughty Boys Geological University. He is an expert on tsunamis and studies the impact on Haiti community of the quakes. He won the Pulitzer Award for his book called Big Boom from the year 2006. Hello.
Good afternoon, bonsoir.
So, how old are you, Mr. Q Baptiste?
I'm 77.
Now, we will start with Nami Tsu. Nami, both countries that we are talking about are islands. Please enrich me, and Q?
Oh no, I know that information.
Okay, sorry, Q. Nami, please enrich me about the geography of your country, Japan.
Oh, sure. Japan has many islands. The four main are Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, Shikoku. It belongs to four tectonic plates, of course. More than 70% of Japan consists of mountains, including more than 200 volcanoes. These islands were formed by volcanoes, as you may know, many of which are still active.
Thank you, Nami. Q, what about Haiti?
Well, for those who don't know, Haiti is in the Caribbean. You'll find it on the boundary of Caribbean tectonic plate and the North American. They move the same direction, but the American one moves a lot faster. It is what you call a transform type of boundary. The terrain is comprised of rugged mountains with small coastal plains and also, as Nami mentioned, the river valleys.
To the most important question, and that is, why was there so much more destruction and loss of life by the Haiti earthquake than Japanese earthquake? We will firstly talk with Nami about one earthquake in Japan, when it was, how strong it was, what were the impacts, primary and secondary effects, Nami.
The Tohoku earthquake struck at 1446 local time on 11th March 2011. It actually lasted for 6 minutes. I remember it like it was yesterday, and the timing is very important because it meant that many people, 1446 again, so many people were outside rather than asleep. And so when the wave struck and the earthquake struck, there wasn't such a high death toll because people weren't at home. So obviously, when you are at home, the the house will fall on you. You don't want that, you will die. People were outside, so they didn't, not that many people died. Also, the earthquake was followed by a devastating tsunami. Tsunami, as in Nami Tsu. Its epicenter was located under the Pacific Ocean, 130 kilometers to the east of Sendai. It struck with a force of 9 on the magnitude scale. That's the Richter scale. Although the Japanese had warning of the tsunami, they had no warning of the earthquake itself. Also, the earthquake in Japan is referred to by its numerical date, which is 311, and in Japan we say Santen Ichi Ichi. So when you hear Santen Ichi Ichi, you know it's an earthquake. So run as fast as you can.
Alright, Q baptized. And what about Haiti?
The catastrophic event occurred on January the 12th, 2010, and on this fateful day in Haiti, a massive 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck near the town of Lausanne, only about 25 kilometers west of the Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, at 16:53 afternoon local time, and the effects were devastating. The seismic event caused unparalleled destruction in Port-au-Prince and the surrounding regions. Lot of buildings, lot of homes and infrastructures crumbled, and leaving an estimated 200,000 to 300,000 people dead and more than 300,000 injured. Among the ruins were government buildings as well as hospitals, which was a big problem, and schools, as well as thousands of homes and businesses, displacing around 1.5 million Haitians and leaving them without shelter. So this was a very tragic and one of the biggest earthquakes. Even it lasted only for 1 minute. It was and it still is one of the most devastating ones in my country.
Why was there so much destruction more in Haiti than in Japan?
Well, I think I can start answering that one. Firstly, let me just say that I'm so sorry for what happened in Haiti. It was certainly very negative. And, well, firstly, as I said, Japan, it struck during the day, right? So people weren't asleep, they weren't at home, they were just walking on the street. And so not many things that could fall on them. But also, we have in Japan, now this is nothing to say that Haiti isn't developed, although it isn't, but we have much stricter building standards that are designed to resist earthquakes. And what I would recommend to the Haiti government, because I don't know if you have a government, we do, but what I would recommend is setting these standards because it is very important to have buildings that can resist earthquakes. Yes, it is costly. Yes, it is hard to build, but I think it's worth it. Also, education. In Japan, we have they teach us in school what to do when an earthquake hits or when a tsunami hits. I mean, giving more money to people who want to build earthquake and tsunami resistant houses. Also, we have a lot of warnings. So I just pick up my phone and I see
Mm.
an earthquake is hitting, and I know I have to go to the shelter, or I know I have to somehow protect myself. So that is all I would recommend to Haiti.
Yes, certainly. I agree here with Nami, but we have to bear in mind that Haiti is the one of the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and the buildings, not only in the capital city, are uh, very in poor condition, in very poor condition, and this crucial aspect in improving the infrastructure and building codes to infrastructures can withstand seismic activity, of course, but we have this problem because we're not that developed country. We are LEDC. We're a less economically developed country, and how mentioned, we're a very poor country. But as you mentioned, investing in the warning systems, that should be a big thing to consider, and also it's for the community because they have to be prepared so they can save their lives. And first and foremost, we must consider here, as I said, and I will repeat that one more time, the economic development. Because Japan,
And
yes,
if I can just, I understand that it's costly, of course, but I think foreign aid can really help you with that because you have, for example, the IMF or the World Bank who can give you money. They have like 3 billion going just to South America and North America, Americas. Um, so you can use that money to, fund. I
yeah,
think they are gonna give you money for this. They're not gonna give you money for all the
yes,
corruption you have there. I think around
still,
80% of
Well,
the money that goes to Haiti
yeah.
is used in corruption schemes. Come
Nami,
on.
will
yes.
you please just listen?
The
Nami,
yeah.
stop. Nami, we have to understand the difference. 1 million people were still without houses after 1 year and had to live
Because
in
you stole
camps.
their money. 80% of the money
Guys,
of the governmental
let's not
budget
argue
is
with each other.
used for the salaries in the government.
Guys,
80%.
And
chill,
there's not
guys.
only problem that they had to live in 8 camps, there's problem that most of the camps have no
Stop
electricity,
arguing.
no running water or sewage disposal, which means there also
I'm
Yours
gonna kick
then,
you.
really high crime rate.
Guys, I'm
The
gonna kick you.
crime rate is incredibly
and it's
high,
my fault that
especially
you
in
have
the
high
camp.
crime rates.
The conditions in the camps were horrible. There's crime, okay?
So I think just to, calm down the whole atmosphere here, of course, the time will help you because when the first earthquakes struck in Japan, we were not prepared. It damaged the whole island or the four islands. Um, so sure, time will help you and you will learn as you go. So the important, I think, thing to just take from this is when an earthquake hits and it has a big impact, learn from it, right? So you know that the emergency arrived too late, or that there was no warning, or that the hospitals didn't work, or that the police didn't work. Well, fix that, right? So look at what
Mhm.
happened, why it happened, and try to fix the cause.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying, Nami, and I agree. But there's widespread gang violence, and not only the gang violence, but also the government in this case is and was accused, for example, for example, exaggerating the death toll to potentially gain a greater amount of fundraising. So you can see that the problem is here with the government, and the whole country is in a crisis and is in ruins because of the government, because of the poverty, because of the crime rate. So it's really a sad story to watch as a
It,
Haiti guy.
yes, I agree. Like, if any Haitian citizen is listening to us, please go and overthrow the government because it is just so sad, so troubling to see what the government in Haiti is doing to the Haiti people. Because
Yeah.
the people of Haiti, and I know you, of course, Q, but I know other Haitian people, and they are amazing. They can just, they're smart, they're all they can be, and I just don't understand. And it really isn't pleasant to see the government just ruining the lives of all those people, not being prepared, the corruption that is happening there. It's just so, so, so bad. So please try to elect a new government, try to restart it. We, Japan, after the Second World War, we restarted too, right? We were a totally different country, but we managed to do it, and I think Haiti can manage too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for the lovely discussion. And I would like to know how the different economical states are affected by these earthquakes. What are the causes and impacts?
Q, I think it's time to go first for you now.
Okay, Nami. Thanks for your appreciation. Uh, about the impacts, not only earthquakes happen in Haiti, but also other natural disasters. You know, for example, tropical cyclones, which are causing flooding and widespread damage. And one of the secondary effects after this earthquake, when the people were recovering from the earthquake and people started to, how would I say that? Yes, to recover. It had to face, Haiti had to face extreme weather and tropical storms while recovering. So this was one of the secondary effects why the country couldn't recover quicker. So it recovered slowly. The primary effect, or one of the primary effects, was the destruction, of course, of the many buildings, as I said, the government buildings, the hospital buildings, school, and also the prison. which again, we go back to the crime rate. The prisoners escaped. A lot of criminals, something about 4,000. There was a slow distribution of resources in the days after the earthquake, which again resulted in violence and looting. If we want to help Haiti, we have to take action in the problem of crime, because when we solve crime, we can solve earthquake. But if this happens and people are those monsters that just go to the streets and just rob themselves and can't help, well, then it's a sad story. As I said, the infrastructure is poor, the people are, they're not moral. Okay, this is not how society should look, especially when hit by an earthquake, and government has no money or had no money or resources to provide the aid, which again shows here the big difference between Japan and Haiti.
All right, thank you. And now for the Japanese guy. Uh, so I will let you speak on your behalf.
Yeah, thank you. Just let me say that I'm so happy and so thankful that I live in a country where after an earthquake, we kind of come together and join in our mission to help those affected by the earthquake, not just go into streets and rob, you know, shops like in Haiti. Um, and yeah, but now to the impact. Japan obviously is the third largest economy in the world, so we have a markedly different position than Haiti. For example, as I talked about the 2011 earthquake, the physical damage from that earthquake has been estimated to be somewhere from $195 billion to as much as 305 billion. Now, this, it's kind of an abstract number. So to put it into context, Greece's GDP per year is 330 billion. So one earthquake cost us the GDP of Greece. Of course, our GDP is much, much, much bigger, but still, um, about 23,000 people are killed or were killed or were killed, and 400,000 homes and other buildings have been totally or partially damaged. Now, these effects are horrible and they are hard to overcome, even in Japan, which is a very modern and rich country. But as I said, uh, if we come together after the earthquake and coordinate help to help those people and support their families, their relatives, etc., we of course try to limit the impacts. But one thing that I would like to add, because that's very specific to Japan, you have no nuclear power plants in Haiti. We do. For example, the Fukushima reactors, and those were heavily damaged, and you kind of don't want to have a nuclear power plant when an earthquake hits. We had it. It was a big, big, big problem, and I think if we didn't have that, then our impacts would have been much, much smaller. Um, and this is something we will have to deal with in the future because we didn't really expect it. We just were building nuclear power plants, and we didn't much care about the impacts on the environment, for example, when an earthquake hits. But yeah, this is really a complex topic. Just what I want to say is that Japan, and again, the earthquakes are horrible, but Japan has kind of built or the economy of Japan has adapted to the earthquakes, right? So there has been kind of a market uh, just evolving around the earthquakes. So we have many, many companies that that build homes that are made to resist earthquakes, and we have adapted, which is a very important thing, and I think Haiti can do that too. So if you're gonna have five more earthquakes, I think earthquake by earthquake the situation in Haiti is gonna improve, but you need one major thing, which is the government. because if you don't have a strong government which coordinates the help and helps the economy grow and flourish, then you can do nothing. The economy cannot adapt because it is just unable to do that on its own.
Thank you, Nami, for wishing us 3 more earthquakes. I really appreciate it.
that-
And the
yeah,
people
that
would
was-
as well.
Thank you. I think
mean,
Haiti has
it's
more
very
problems
inappropriate.
now, and they are much major than earthquakes. Okay, guys. Thank you for coming. I think we learned a lot about the impacts in different states and how the economical state affects the current situation of the earthquake and its causes. So, again, thank you for coming, and I hope you have a great day. Wait, do you hear it?
Brilliant! I know
What
this
is that?
sound.
Oh, what is that?
That's the earthquake. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you, I know this sound. This means there is a 3 magnitude earthquake, kind of, you know? So, what should we do? I know it, but I'm testing you.
You're testing me. Well, as
Quickly,
I
what do
am...
we do?
Well, listen. Keep calm. Stay away from outer walls, windows, or fireplaces and hanging objects. If you're unable to move from a bed or chair, protect yourself from falling objects by covering up with blankets and pillows, for example. And if you're outside, that's another thing to bear in mind. Go to an open area away from the trees or buildings and stay there, okay?
Okay, guys, thank you for coming once more. Signing out, Mild Berries Ford.
Bart.
Toyota.
¿Cómo te sientes acerca de tener una polla pequeña, Nami Tsu?
Kutabare minima horo koro shita kedo kiku tike reke arigato tanoshite chukuenda o.
Ok, Baptiste.
Jack Grenemonceau, pe kebab, beneficie el BTAC 2. El proclame por tu prince, dan declaración, sila, san oken, diferents, tanko.
Gracias por su atención y adiós.
Arigato, Yane.
Konsva, bonsva.
Yane.